I mean, you can't stop change. And Squamish is growing. It was great when I was young, but it's also great now. I'm tired of people that have lived here a long time saying, oh, we got to go back. Things were better before. Yeah, they were different. I don't think they were better. My name is Kerry Brown.
Hi, Kerry.
Yes.
And how long have you been in Squamish?
Oh boy, since 1961. So do the math, I guess. A
And
long time.
how old were you when you came and what brought you to Squamish?
uh, I was 7 years old, actually 6 years old the first time I came to Squamish, but I was 7 years old when we moved here. My grandfather had bought a sawmill on the Squamish Reserve, and my family moved up here my father worked in the sawmill with them.
And how long did he work in the sawmill?
He only worked there for about 4 or 5 years, and then he went logging. Um, Worked at McMillan Bloedel. He worked at several of the smaller outfits around town. So we were in logging for many years, 25, 30 years.
What area of town were you living in at that point?
Dentville first, and well, we lived on the Squamish Reserve for the first several months in Squamish. There was the housing back then was worse than it is now. There was no place to rent. My parents couldn't afford a house. They finally found a place down in Dentville, and then we moved to downtown on 2nd Avenue. That was a really nice house. It used to be a garden center, I believe. There was an orchard in the yard, all sorts of stuff, and all sorts of different plants and that. Doesn't exist anymore. It's condos now. No. And then they bought a house on Wilson Crescent, and that's pretty much where I grew up.
So what school did you go to then, Squamish?
Squamish Elementary, and interesting story. My granddaughter, it was about 7 or 8 years ago, I guess, we went to her Christmas concert, and then afterwards we went into her homeroom to see what they were doing. And that had been my homeroom when I was in grade 3 or 4. So
That's fun.
yeah, so the Squamish Elementary's been there a long time. And then I went to Howe Sound Secondary, graduated in 1972. Again, an interesting story about my granddaughter. She just graduated this year. Her graduating class was bigger than the whole school when I graduated.
Okay. So after high school, then what happened?
I went to university, had a couple of scholarships, so I went to Simon Fraser. Um, I kept coming back to Squamish in the summer because I could make a lot of money logging, and that would pay for my university. And I made so much money logging that eventually I only did about 3 years of university, and I ended up quitting because I could make so much more money logging. I was a philosophy major, and there wasn't a lot of jobs for philosophy majors. And there was a lot of jobs in logging. People were phoning me up to say, can you come to work?
Right. And so what did you do for logging?
Mostly working on the road crews, swamping behind a cat, working on the drill rigs. And then after that, I went on the log booms, worked on the booms for about 20 years. My father and my brother and I, we all worked on the booms. We all worked at McMillan Bloedel at that time, and they shut down the division here. And so I moved over to Powell River to work in the Stillwater division on the log booms there. And I worked on the tugboats for a while too, I guess. And my father started a video rental business. I thought he was crazy. He had got a good buyout when he was on salary at McMillan Bloedel, so he got a good buyout. And within a year, I was over here working there with him.
Let's go back to that, thinking your father was crazy. What year was that?
Would have been 1981 or 82.
So he started the video, and what did you think? These will never catch on, or?
I had no idea, but we didn't know anything about business. We were loggers. And so I was more worried about that than the not catching on, because I thought videos were great.
So you thought they're great, but you just thought we couldn't possibly do it.
Well, yeah, we didn't know anything about business.
Right.
And we were very lucky because the video industry just exploded, and so we could make all sorts of mistakes and still make money at it. And we eventually learned how to run a business.
What was the name of that company?
It was Brown's Video.
Okay, now tell me a little bit about Browns, because I remember Browns
Yeah.
as I remember, going up and lining up there, and it seemed like it was many, many years in business.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. We were 20 years in business.
Yeah.
It was very much a family business. At times, the whole family worked there. My two sisters, my brother, my mother, my father, we all worked there. Um, we had two video stores. We had one here, one in Pemberton. We decided to go into sales, so we sold TVs, VCRs, stereos, computers in both stores. We supplied videos to several of the grocery stores around town, the little corner stores. It was a really good time. There was a lot of money, and it was great.
It's great. Um, okay, and then the computers. Didn't you sell some computers off the side of?
Yeah, yeah. I was always interested in computers. When I was in grade 12 in Howe Sound Secondary, I went down to Simon Fraser to see what I wanted to do, and went to their computer room, which was, boy, the computer took up the whole room. There was no screen, it was a teletype. So it was all done by keyboards, and I played a lunar lander game by typing in instructions and then reading it back on a typewriter.
Fun.
And so I was interested with computers ever since then, and I started taking programming courses and night school courses. I would go to Vancouver, learn all about networking and that. Yeah, so that was kind of my hobby off the side. I actually wrote a program for a video store to run the whole video store.
And did it?
For a little while, and then companies started coming out with their own video rental program that were better than mine, so we started using that. That was interesting. I reverse engineered their program to put a whole bunch of graphic reporting into it, thinking I could sell it to them. So I sent it down to them and said, "Are you interested in this?" And they said, "No, we're not really interested in it." 3 months later, they came out with their own program that was exactly the same as mine.
Not interested.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so then Browns closed in early 2000s.
Yeah, there was a trade fair at the Civic Center, and Detlef Rudolph was opening up an internet company in Squamish for dial-up internet, and he had the booth right beside us, and he said, "Do you want to hook your computers up to my internet?" I said, "Sure." And I watched BCTV News on a small little screen about 2 inches wide, and I realized that was the end of the video. So about 3 years later, we sold off the video stores. By that time, my father had got sick. He had Alzheimer's. So I was running the business. My brother was there as well. So him and I kept the sales part of it, and we closed down the video part of it. And then it was about 4 or 5 years after that, I found out through the grapevine. There was a counselor who I won't name because it was privileged information. He's not allowed to tell me, but he said Walmart and London Drugs were coming to town. And I realized there's no way I can compete with them, so we closed down that business as well.
And do you regret that decision?
No, not at all. No, it was a good run. We had a good time. We didn't lose any money. We all made money, and the family, the family was employed for 25 years.
Okay, and then what's the next act? We're in like Act 3, I think, of Kerry at this point.
I went back to UBC to get some certifications for, computers and networking and that, because I knew it all, but I didn't have the certifications. So I went and got a bunch of certifications from UBC. I applied for a bunch of jobs, but as I was in my 50s by this time, no one wanted to hire me. So I started a consulting business. Strangely enough, the same people that wouldn't hire me would hire me as a consultant at a way higher rate than they ever would have paid me by the hour. Right. So that was interesting. And that progressed. I got involved in a Microsoft, they call it an MVP program. So I was working a lot with Microsoft. I would go down there and see all their new software and then go on speaking tours to teach people about their new software and that. And through that, I connected with the Canadian Internet Registration Authority, or CIRA it's called. They run the .ca for Canada. They're a big not-for-profit. So I got elected to their board. I was on their board for 9 years. Very interesting. Got to meet all the people that invented the internet, that wrote the software that it ran on. It was a very interesting time.
It would be
Yeah,
the birth of that and the change in it.
yeah.
Now, did you foresee where it was going to go, or does it still surprise you with where computers have gone to now?
Doesn't surprise me. I'm a little disappointed that big companies like Facebook and that seem to be taking over the internet. Cira, when I was involved with them, did a lot of international work trying to keep the internet free for everybody. And so I see that gradually changing where it's not that free for everybody anymore. It's kind of controlled a bit. We tried to stop that, but I guess there's no stopping it. But it's I still think the internet has done a lot for the world. I think you know, we have information that we didn't have. We have access to that information in an instant, where before you didn't have that.
What about AI? Will you be forging into AI, or are you just going to let that pass?
AI scares me. It really does. It 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 has the potential to do great things for the medical industry, things like that. I have prostate cancer, and AI can diagnose that much faster and better than the human eyes can. So there's great potential there. There's also potential for it to be misused, and it already is by bad actors, like with doing fake videos and all that kind of stuff. So there's great promise, and there's also a lot to be worried about.
Thank you for tuning in to Meet Squamish, the full interview of Kerry Brown. I appreciate that. If you're from Squamish, you would probably remember Brown's video downtown, and they spread throughout the corridor, as Kerry just said. I would like to know if you have a Brown's video memory, and if so, put it down below in the comments so we can share some of our memories. The next part that's coming up is about Kerry's personal story, things about him that you wouldn't necessarily know, and some of the people who are important to him, and his thoughts about the community. So stay tuned. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed, please do. And I'm on Facebook and YouTube. If you have any ideas for people you'd want to see too, put that in the comments. Thank you. Now, that's your work life. Tell me about your personal life, Kerry. Tell me some of the personal things. Are you married? What do you do for fun?
Oh, I got married very late in life, in my 50s. So I didn't have any children of my own, but my wife Dee had 3 kids, and we've got lots of grandchildren. So I'm really enjoying the grandchildren. I've been involved. I've been a musician most of my life. I started when I was about 13 years old, taking guitar lessons from Tony Bartolotto, the barber downtown. He had a little office off the side of the Chieftain, and he would give guitar lessons. He's a great guitar player, by the way. I don't think he still plays, but he is a great guitar player.
Didn't know.
I was very fortunate that he taught me how to play the guitar, but he also taught me a lot about music. He drilled the music theory into me, and that stayed with me all my life, which has been a boon later on in life. I played in bands. I really enjoy playing music. I like making people dance. The last band I was in, I played bass for 2 years, and that was more fun than anything, because with the bass you can actually see that what you're playing makes people dance, and that was very enjoyable. I found about 3 years ago that I just didn't have the stamina to play in a band anymore. There's a lot of work. You got to practice 3 or 4 days a week, and then you have to go to practice with the band, then you got to play your gigs, and you got to lug all this equipment around. So I just didn't have the stamina for it. And then COVID happened, and there was nowhere to play anyways. During COVID, my wife bought a ukulele, and so after COVID, I actually was in a band for a while, but she kept playing this ukulele. And so I bought a ukulele, and I really enjoyed it. It's such a happy little instrument. It's so much fun to play
Yeah.
that now my wife and I, we play open mics and we teach seniors ukulele at the 55 plus. That's the most enjoyable thing I've done in music, is teaching seniors how to play an instrument. Just seeing the smiles on their face. They've never played an instrument. They've never really sang before. And all of a sudden we have them playing an instrument and singing simple songs, and the smiles on their face just say it all.
That's great.
Yeah.
And you have to have a bit of patience for that, to do that? Or?
Yeah, you do. You do. It's hard with seniors because a lot of them have arthritis in their hands. So you have to kind of modify how they play the instrument to suit what they're capable of doing. So yeah, you need some patience, but they really want to do it. So they're willing to do whatever you tell them to do.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
But you've been involved in a lot of other clubs as well.
Yes, yeah.
What other ones? Like, you've been a long time in Squamish, Kerry. Lots of contributions.
Yeah.
So can you give me an example of some of them? I think the Flying Club was one of those.
Yeah, I was involved with the Flying Club for a number of years. I got my pilot's license. I wanted to become a commercial pilot. That I realized after I was flying a bit how dangerous the flying was on the coast here. And to become a commercial pilot, you had to build up hours and hours flying around the coast. So while I was involved with that, I got involved with the Squamish Flying Club and eventually became the president there. That was interesting because at that time, the Squamish Flying Club ran the airport. It was municipal lease from the municipality, but they just let us do whatever we wanted. So that was an interesting time running in the airport. I didn't keep up with the flying. It was costing too much money, and I realized I was never going to be a commercial pilot. So I gave up that. And then I took up golfing, and I loved golfing. I got involved with the golf club, then I became president of the golf club. That was a very interesting time as well because the golf club at the time, it had been built by volunteers. It was all volunteer labor, and it was starting to deteriorate. And so we realized we had to renovate the golf course. And so when I was president, they did the first 9 holes of renovation. And I showed up at the golf course one day, and there's a big, huge D9 cat on the 10th green, ripping the green up. It was a bit scary, but it turned out really well. The renovations turned out really well, and everybody liked them, and the golf course did well after that.
And actually, I mean, it makes sense we'd have to renovate because, as you say, it was built by volunteers largely.
Yeah.
And so how long did it last before we had to do a renovation? 20 years?
It was the original 9 holes were built, I think, in the 60s. They had their 25th anniversary when I was the president, and that was in the late 1980s. So yeah, it was,
25 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Are you still golfing?
No, I had an ear infection and my sense of balance went, so I can't really golf that well anymore.
Now, I think you were also involved with the Squamish Environmental Society?
Yeah, I was only involved with them for a couple of years. I've been an environmentalist all my life. I spent most of my life hiking in the mountains and camping in the mountains, and I love the outdoors. And I like to work in the background a little bit, and you couldn't really do it there. So I was a vice president for 1 year, and then I resigned. And I'm still a member, but I'm not that active with it.
How do you feel about climate change? How do you feel about?
I'm devastated by climate change. How are my grandkids going to be when they grow up? Like the youngest one now is 7 years old. What's going to happen when she's in her 40s or 50s? What kind of world are we going to have? Climate change scares me more than anything.
Okay, inside edge knowledge industry.
That was a dream many of us had. There was several of us involved in the knowledge industry, and we wanted the District of Squamish to come up with a knowledge industry policy. And we knew the Olympics was coming. We knew there was going to be fiber optics running up to Whistler. We wanted to get Squamish hooked into that. We tried to work with the municipality, and there was so much resistance from the bureaucracy of municipality to outside people trying to do anything that we eventually gave up. But we had a lot of fun. We lasted about 3 years, I think, and we would put on, once a week, have speakers come in and talk to people. We'd do different events. We had a lot of fun with it, but eventually it didn't go anywhere and we just gave up on it.
So what was your intended purpose?
The intended purpose was to promote the knowledge industry in Squamish. There was too much bureaucratic interference that it didn't happen.
Okay. And do you think there's still a place for that today in the community? Would there be a place for that?
I think the bureaucracy in Squamish has changed. They seem to be much more receptive to it, and they actually seem to be working towards it. So I don't think there's a need for an outside people to work at it so much anymore. So maybe we did some good, that it took time and we weren't there anymore, but it eventually happened.
Yeah, that's hopeful. That's good.
Yeah.
Sea to Sky Freenet Association.
That was the first internet in Squamish. So we put some computers in the library, and we worked with back then it was all dial-up. I think we had, I can't remember, it was 6 modems I think hooked up. And we got some grants from the government to run it because it was very expensive at the time. It was all long distance through I think it was through BC Tel at the time. It was a thing called Data Pack, where you had to access the internet and you paid by the minute. And so we had free dial-up. People in Squamish could dial up, and there was no World Wide Web then. There was no nothing, and so that was the start of the internet in Squamish.
When the internet started, could you just put in anything you wanted, or was it like just some specific areas of information?
There was no graphics. It was type in commands. So there was Usenet, it was called, which was similar to groups on Facebook, sort of, but it was like just typing in commands, and you would type something and then leave it there, and then other people might answer it. You could see it days later, whatever. There was a thing called Gopher, which you could type in search commands, and it would search the internet to try and find what you were looking for, but it was very clunky. It was very different than what we have now.
Okay. And when did they start talking about surfing? Because I remember them, and was that when it started to get easier, or what was?
Oh yeah, that's when it started to get easier. It was still dial-up in Squamish, so graphics were very slow. It didn't work that great. But there was, I can't remember his name. He worked at CERN in Switzerland, and he invented the World Wide Web. And actually, I met him at one point, but I can't remember his name now. He was a very interesting guy. He didn't like the way the internet went afterwards, but that was the start. The World Wide Web was the start of the internet as we know it today.
And that's when they started talking about surfing.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. So now you did mention you had cancer.
Yes.
And so I just let that go.
Yeah.
Is that something you want to talk about?
A little bit, yeah. I think it's very important. There's prostate cancer. 1 in 8 men will get prostate cancer in their life, statistically. It's the 3rd leading cause of death for men in Canada. If it's caught early, it's curable. And it can be caught with a simple blood test called the PSA test. The PSA test doesn't mean you have cancer, but it's an indication that you may have cancer, and it should be investigated further. There was doctors seemed to be reluctant to test for a long time because the treatments they had were very hard on your body. They still are, but they were much harder on your body. So they didn't want to overtreat people. And prostate cancer is very slow growing. It doesn't, you usually don't get it till you're older, and you'll probably die with it rather than die from it for most people. But it can also be very aggressive. And if it's caught early, you can live a long life because it's cured. What happened to me, I had a doctor, he retired, and then I had another doctor, he gave me normal blood tests, I went for my things, but he didn't do the PSA test. Then he left Squamish, I got a new doctor. The first thing he said was, you're almost 70, you should have a PSA test. I said, okay. It was slightly elevated. So he said, well, we'll wait a few months and see. And he did another test and it was elevated again, but a little bit higher. So he said, well, that's an indication there's something going on. So he referred me to a urologist. The urologist tested again, it was going up again. So they did a biopsy, and yeah, I had prostate cancer. So then they started doing other tests. They do bone scans and CT scans and that, and it had spread. So for me, it's not curable. I'm going to be on treatment for the rest of my life. And the treatments are pretty harsh. It really affects your life. Where if my first doctor would have tested me when I was, 10 years before, I probably would be cured and I'd be out of it by now. So I really would urge people, men, to talk to their doctors about getting the PSA test.
And is there a cost to it?
No, it's the doctor has to specify that he suspects you may have prostate cancer. But other than that, they just tick a box on the form and you get a PSA test.
And it's a simple blood test.
So it's part of a normal blood test, yeah.
Interesting. Okay, well that's a good. I think that's a decent shout out. That's a great piece of wisdom.
Yeah.
That to share. So thank you for that, Kerry. And how are you doing then?
Well, yeah. Actually, I've been on the cancer medications now for about 2.5 years. They really cause a lot of changes in your body, but the cancer has actually shrunk a little bit now. So I'm going to probably go off of one of the medications. And yeah, I'm doing very well. I mean, I work 5 days a week at Home Depot. It's a lot of people wonder why I work when I'm 72. Or actually, I'm 71 now. I'll be 72 on the 17th of August. But I just enjoy being out with people. I couldn't sit at home. During COVID, it drove me crazy. So I went and got a job at Home Depot.
Good for you. Yeah. And that would be a place to meet lots of people for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so how about some names of folks who in your 70, almost 2 years in this community has influenced you or has made a difference? You've mentioned Tony. Yeah. Is there anybody else that you would like to mention that has made a difference? Yeah. Past, present, or future?
Yeah. Don Patrick with the Flying Club, he was incredible. Who else? John Gilmore. I had him as a teacher in high school, and we became friends afterwards. And when I was president of the golf club, he was the past president. He really helped me to learn what to do as a president of the golf club. Yeah, there's been a few people. I'm trying to think who else. Those two really stick out.
That's good. Yeah. Okay, if you had a magic wand, mm-hmm. and you could keep one thing in Squamish from changing, something that is essential to our community that you feel needs to stay forever, what would that be?
I really can't think of anything. Change is good.
So you're happy with, there's nothing you'd like to preserve?
I wish we had better infrastructure. Other than that, you can't stop change. And Squamish is growing. There's nothing. It was great when I was young, but it's also great now. I'm tired of people that have lived here a long time saying, "Oh, we got to go back. Things were better before." Yeah, they were different. I don't think they were better.
Fair.
Yeah.
Now, the opposite question: you got a magic wand. You could change one thing. What would you change?
I would like to have a better route out of Squamish for emergencies. There's now it's with, you know, when they had the forest fire up at Dryden Creek, I was living in Brackendale and we were under evacuation notice. How would we have got out of town if that fire, if the wind had changed and those embers were coming towards Brackendale? It would have been a nightmare. How would we get out of town? We really need another way out of town. That's one thing I would change.
Okay. And any final words, Kerry, or any final thoughts that you'd like to share with the community?
I think my final thoughts would be, don't fight change. Try and make the change that you want. Don't just try and keep things the same.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.